Welcome to the Free Black Girl Podcast. This is a space for joyful healing, learning, and collective liberation. My name is Najma Ahmed, and you are listening to a series of mini podcast episodes called Lessons from Liberation. I shared in my first season of the podcast all the ways in which I got free from unhealed trauma, people pleasing, and really from any person, place, or thing causing me to betray myself. Now, these lessons from liberation are based on what I learned last year after asking myself, now what? I started a blog during that time called The Freedom Pages, and I'm sharing what I reflected on in real time. In the last episode, we talked about how music has healed me and also my memories of music when everything in my childhood felt chaotic, to say the least. First, I want to give a trigger warning for this episode. While I've spoken at high levels about healing my childhood trauma, I'm now called to share a bit more deeply as it may help others who experienced a similar upbringing. This episode won't be for everyone, but I know it's for someone out there. I wrote this blog post last year, but I've deepened my understanding of how it was still impacting my life and asking for deeper healing by feeling through it and releasing the shame of this story that I carry. Let's jump into this week's lesson. I grew up in a family where discipline wasn't just encouraged, it was demanded. From praying 5 times a day, copying chapters from the Quran for hours, to getting straight A's, meticulously cleaning and meeting expectations without question or flaw. Mistakes weren't opportunities for learning, they were met with extreme punishment. Violent physical abuse, mental and or emotional abuse and manipulation. The message was clear. Safety and approval only came through relentless consistency and precision in an environment cultivated through fear. That kind of upbringing imprints itself in deep places. In adulthood, it showed up as anxiety, perfectionism, and avoidance. If I didn't feel prepared to tackle something perfectly, I avoided it. This included adulting tasks like handling finances, cleaning, even rest and play. From a childhood fear of being called lazy and the consequences that followed, or turning play into achievement and giving up because I'm wondering if my painting, dancing, music, singing, etc. is good enough or if anybody even cared. And instead of just being in the moment and growing through play, I was holding those thoughts in my head. And so somewhere along the line, I rejected discipline in most areas of my life, except at work and school. That's where I overachieved to the point of exhaustion and burnout. That was the place where I did receive praise in my childhood for my grades, for how hard I worked. But over time, 7 years of deep somatic healing to be exact, I started to release the survival-based version of discipline that I was taught. And what has begun to replace it is devotion. Devotion feels differently in my body. It's softer. It's rooted in care and alignment. Cleaning is no longer a chore to anxiously check off a list. It's an act of gratitude for my space and belongings. Managing my finances isn't punishment for past missteps, but devotion to honoring the abundance flowing through my life. Even my relationship to prayer has transformed. I once associated prayer with obligation, fear, and rigid expectation. While I no longer practice organized religion, I've come to appreciate the parts of Muslim prayer that always brought me peace. The recitation of prayers were a rhythmic, melodic meditation. It allowed for moments of quiet, stillness, and reflection that were sometimes rare in my household. Even the ritual of bowing, standing, and kneeling is a whole somatic exercise. And of course, I didn't know this as a child, as there wasn't any compassionate guidance provided to understand this. And to be fair, I doubt the adults in my life had the language at that time either. I actually reflected on this recently with my houseplants. Stay with me. But at one point, some of them were wilting. No amount of sticking to a rigid watering schedule helped. I had to pay attention to them as individual plants. I moved them closer to the light. I adjusted how much water or nutrients were required as they grew. I observed them and responded accordingly to what they needed in that moment, and they began to thrive. It was a culture of love that I was cultivating. Now, I can tend to them easily, not because I'm following a strict set of rules, but because I'm devoted to what each of them need for their growth. It reminded me how the same is true for my own life. Many times in my life, despite my best efforts, I spent so much energy and time actively or subconsciously worrying if I was being disciplined enough or consistent enough to reach my goals. And in the back of my head, I was waiting to know how I would be punished by the universe or God if I wasn't. And the truth is, I was already living in the middle of my manifestations the whole time. If God was going to punish me for not being perfect, well, they would have done it by now. But shifting to devotion was the catalyst to get me to understand that I was already enough. I just had to offer myself the love to see that I was already devoted to my evolution, even when I was doing nothing at all. I was already devoted to helping people with what I've learned along the way as they move along on their own journeys. But I had to stop letting the idea of discipline stop me from moving forward for fear of not doing it the right way. Devotion allows us to flow with the seasons, with the cycles of the moon, with our body's wisdom. It invites rest when we need it, stillness when we crave it, and forward movement when it feels authentic and inspired. Devotion makes space for grief, for joy, for play, for release. I've learned that devotion also requires knowing yourself, asking, what do I need? Where do I want to go? Why does any of this matter to me? And then letting the answers to those questions shape how you show up, not by enforcing obedience, but through aligned, loving care. As my therapist once said to me, what kept you safe in your trauma will eventually harm you as you heal and grow. Clinging to the idea of being disciplined and consistent kept me safe as a child, but has caused me to stagnate many times as an adult when I didn't feel I could maintain what I thought was required of me. This year has taught me even more that I don't need to operate in the same way every day to be devoted either. What matters now is owning my own rhythm of creation, the cycle that I realized and can now name. My cycle, number one, beginning with ideation, receiving creative inspiration. Number two, moving into action, strategizing and implementing. Number three, we rest. We pause and breathe and show gratitude. And number four, we move into play. We move our bodies. We laugh. We engage our senses. And then I shift into number five, which is the release, the celebrating, the crying, the nurturing joy and pleasure or grieving. And then repeat. This is what devotion looks like for me now. Not a list of shoulds, but an intentional check-in with my spirit and staying loyal to what I need. Now, I wrote that blog post last year, but I have been wanting to do an episode on discipline for over a year now. I think it was, I saw Kev on Stage had posted and somebody had said something like, y'all used to get beat by belts for real. And he went on to talk about how we used to get beat with belts, race car tracks, all kinds of things. And I said something in the comments about how it's, maybe not cool that we got beat as children. And I got hundreds of responses from people telling me how they deserve to be beaten. And, I still had so much fear of doing this episode, being seen in this way. There's so much shame around growing up a child who was effectively neglected and abused. Even saying that out loud. Being hit with wooden paddles the size of a tennis racket, 3 inches thick, with holes drilled in it. As a 7-year-old girl by a grown man, your father. Or later, hit in the face and a busted lip by that same grown man as a teenager for quote unquote talking back. Hit with switches that cut your legs and back by the woman who birthed you, your mother, because you had clothes under the bed. Living in a house that was full of domestic violence, drug abuse, and chaos. It's hard to admit that is your story of origin, particularly when there were also good memories and things that you loved about your childhood. It can be confusing to reconcile all of that in one body. Bell Hooks really broke this open for me in her book, All About Love. I want you to listen to this clip.
I mean, I talk in the book about all of these people who'll say, my dad beat me or mom did this, but she really loved me. And a key chapter in the book is the chapter on children, where I'm saying that no, in fact, if we are being abused in any way, we are not being loved. That love is antithetical to abuse and to domination, and that marvelous moment for me in the book when I'm talking about what do we teach our children about love? What is the miseducation we give them? And part of the miseducation we give them is that you can violate someone and then say you love them. And I think as we ponder why we are raising a nation of violent children, we have to ponder that miseducation about the nature of love.
You recite that.
And so oftentimes what happens, or what happened for me, speaking for myself, is that I just shut off all of the bad parts of my childhood. My mom died of an overdose when I was 13 years old. My grief wouldn't allow me at that time to make sense of anything that had happened to me in those first 13 years of my life. I was now essentially an orphan, even with one living parent who was never consistently there. I kind of wanted to just pretend like it never happened because it felt like there must be something wrong with me for the people who birthed me to treat me in that way. But what I have come to realize is that you cannot heal what you don't feel. A lot of us go through life who had similar childhood experiences as I had, and we don't allow ourselves to feel it. We tell ourselves that we must have been bad. We must have deserved it. There must be something wrong with us. And that does not just go away. Even when you're not consciously thinking about it, it shows up in not trusting yourself, in thinking that you can't move something forward because you're lazy, that you're not capable, or through over-functioning and achieving, trying to be nice, trying to please everybody, trying to make sure that everybody is comfortable, over-analyzing people's emotions and facial expressions so you don't make anybody angry or upset at you. It lives in our autoimmune disorders and diseases, in our stomach pain, our backaches, in our bodies that makes us sick. I know this is for somebody. I don't know who, but if you'll let me speak to your inner child for just 1 minute, I want you to close your eyes if you can. If this has been your story, I want you to know that you did not deserve to be hit. You are not lazy. You are not bad. You are allowed to feel safe in your body. You have ownership over your body. Making a decision will not end in physical or emotional punishment. You do not have to be perfect to be loved. You are allowed to make mistakes. You are allowed to be curious. You are allowed to try. Your feelings matter. It's okay to cry. It's okay to be tired. It's okay to want to play. You are allowed to speak up for yourself. You can talk back. You can be mad. You can protect yourself now. You've got you. You can know your parents cared for you and be pissed off for what they did to little you. Little you deserves your righteous anger, protection, and release. Inhale. Exhale. I want you to replay this as much as you need, that part in particular, and say it back to little you. And journal what comes up for you. Many of us who were physically, mentally, and emotionally abused and neglected as children, the stories that we tell ourselves that we deserved it or that it made us better, it infiltrates every part of our lives and makes us afraid to speak up for ourselves, or it swings us to the other side and we're hyper defensive or isolated in anticipation of attack. We're even afraid of the silence because you're on edge, waiting and wondering when you might set them off, or your nervous system is waiting for that whooping when they get home from work. So you try to disappear. When you get so good at being invisible, you realize, oh shit, nobody sees me. And then we walk around wondering why we don't trust ourselves, why we don't know who we are, because it was beaten out of us. And our nervous system remembers, even if we try to forget and act like it never happened, that pain in your gut when you used to get before you got a whooping, and you wonder why you got indigestion right now. Why you got lower back pain and all that trauma stored in your hips from all those beatings damaging your root chakra, your safety, your groundedness. If you grew up thinking that you deserved to be hit when you did something wrong, when you were bad, when you made a bad choice, when you didn't use the best judgment, when your emotions got bigger than you knew how to handle as a 7-year-old, when you were told that the proper way to deal with that is through enacting violence upon your body that doesn't just go away, and you continue to enact the same violence upon your body, even if it isn't in the same way, it manifests as not caring for your body. It's not eating right. It's not sleeping. It's calling yourself dumb or bad or wrong, not trusting your mind. Not trusting your mind is the ultimate violence upon it, because now you're at war with your own thoughts. When people complain that children are soft these days because they're not being beaten like we were, do we not want more soft black children in the world? Do black babies not deserve softness in the world that hardens them, in a world that has sought to deny our humanity for centuries? When I learned that the average age of an enslaved person in this country was about 19 years old, it blew my mind. It made the trauma so clearly. We are still healing from that same initial rupture. If you are a descendant of that lineage, that parent wound goes deeper than you can even conceptualize. They were beaten by their parents to save them from death at the hands of white people. And you want to continue that legacy? Do we not want children who are finally allowed to feel? Do we not want children who can be at ease? Children who are capable, who are sovereign, who are capable to direct themselves, who grow into adults who are balanced? Why do we think that comes through hardness, through discipline, through punishing, through beating them? I don't think it worked for you. It didn't work for me. It didn't work for my siblings. I won't tell their stories, but it did not work for them. Hell, it didn't work for my parents, who turned around and did it to us and their parents, and so on and so forth. Black children deserve to be soft. I'm sending so much love to you if this has been your story. There is help available to you. Somatic healing has changed my life. There is no amount of talk therapy in the world that will release that trauma from your body. I urge you to look up a somatic therapist in your area, check out Therapy for Black Girls, and you can reach out to me. I actually want you, please, to reach out to me directly if you would like assistance in finding resources or to learn more about what somatic healing is and how it can help you. Thank you for listening. Go ahead and hit like and subscribe. Leave me a comment and a 5-star review wherever you get your podcast. I truly hope these lessons from liberation help you to grow, as you being in community with me helps me to grow. And as always, I want this to be a conversation. So leave me a comment. How will you care for and protect little you?